everyone. Welcome back to a very special edition of Wrestling with the Future. Tonight, a tribute, a salute to Black History Month, wrestling style. And to join me in this conversation, Amelia, living La Vida Loca Chapman. How are you, kiddo?
Good, how are you?
I'm wonderful. 2 nights in a row, you got me.
Absolutely.
Scary thought, ain't it?
Not that bad.
And I got my friend, Nikita Breznikov. Nikki, I haven't seen you, my friend, in a little while. It's been a while since we've seen each other, and I could think of no other person I want on the show tonight to talk Black history and wrestling, and then to talk wrestling in general. And the author of this fabulous little book called "When It Was Real." And by God, it was to Nikki and I. We are around the same age-ish, and we're not telling anybody what that age is, so shut up.
25. Or we Jack Benny, 39.
Exactly, right? This is the cover of the book, When It Was Real. And Nikita Breznikov is a frequent guest on the show. It's been a long time since I've seen Nikki. But I'll tell you what, man, I'm glad to have you back. Let's talk about what's been going on since I've seen you last. First of all, I apologize in front of you and the world. I have been neglectful in my duties. I got Facebook hacked, and I lost. I did. I sure did. I got Facebook hacked, and I lost a lot of people on my list. And honestly, took me an act of Congress to literally. Try to find where I downloaded my backup, my Facebook backup.
Oh, yeah.
But it took me months, probably 3 months, to get everybody back. So I apologize for not reaching out sooner. And but I'm glad that you took me back.
Oh, well, yeah. I can't even imagine. I wouldn't know where to begin if it happened. And it probably will at some point, but sure.
Well, if you've not been Facebook hacked, brother, you are blessed, lucky beyond reproach. Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
A little, but not that.
Nikki, let's talk a little bit about, and we've talked about your book before. You know, we've had authors on the show before. Scott TEAL, of course, John Cosper. We've had, Princess Victoria, Judy Martin. All these wonderful personalities, great authors, writers. You're a guy who, by profession, isn't a writer, really. Okay, it's not really not what you do. But you were able to do something in When It Was Real that connected with people, wrestling fans in particular. I think what you did in your approach to this book is you spoke like a guy we could relate to, a fan. Because as you've told me before, Ange, I'm always going to be a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a simple read. It's an easy read. That's the most important thing. This book is loaded. And I mean, when I tell you folks, it is loaded with information you won't read anywhere else. You won't find anywhere else. Nikita Breznikov is he is the proverbial fly on the wall who has all the juicy gossip and all the best stories right here. I'm not going to tell you, but there's something about Captain Lou Albano that you'd be surprised to find out unless you read the book. Now, I'll tell you that my co-host, Amelia Living La Vida Loca Chapman, she read some snippets of your book. She actually read a little bit today. And she's got some questions for you. So before, everybody gets to hear my mouth for the umpteenth time, Amelia, I'm going to throw it to you and go ahead and talk to Nikki, and then we'll talk about Black history.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Same here.
Thank you. And the way I was reading your book, it's like I could actually imagine myself being there, walking. And then the funny part is the one part that I read is you putting your hands in underneath the faucet with Captain Albano. And then sneezing. I'm not gonna give out the rest of it, but And then, of course, him looking around and he couldn't say anything because there was children around. And that look that he gave. I'm not gonna give the rest of it away, but that was funny. The prankster.
Well, that
And
was
then
Nikolai.
this,
Nikolai was the
yeah, and
prankster.
that was the funny part of it. I'm not gonna give away a lot of it, but Mrs. Krager and the salt ritual, and one of the episodes, and that was a funny part. And then, of course, Andre the Giant's mentioned in the book, which I really love about that. And the fans could actually go up to the wrestlers at that time, and I remember that part. And
Yeah,
everything wasn't choreographed. Wrestling was wrestling back then. I remember because I used to be able to go to the wrestlers. Hi, how are you? It's nice to see you. It's nice to meet you. Can I please have your autograph? Can I hug you? Can I take a picture with this little Polaroid camera? Now you can't even go up to them at all. Everything's all
Well,
choreographed.
it's funny, Amelia. I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. I hardly ever do that.
Sure.
Nikki knows better. Nikki knows I always interrupt.
That's why I said sure.
Nikita, last night on the show last night, we actually had Baby Doll here,
Oh
Nicola
yes.
Roberts.
I saw your ads. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, Nicola was here last night. She was wonderful. She's coming
Mhm.
back in 2 weeks. We had
Mhm.
so many questions, and we had such an amazing conversation
Yes.
that my sponsors only allow me an hour per episode, so
Mhm.
she's going to come back. But we were talking about that. What Amelia brought up prompted something from last night. As there was a
Mhm.
time that the wrestling industry, wrestlers in particular,
Mhm.
they were untouchable. You
Yes.
couldn't get near. If God forbid, if you tried to get near Bruno, or
Mhm.
or one of the bigger names like Superstar or
Right.
someone like that, security would be escorting you out the building. Now, things have come in a crazy, you know, been there, done that, and been there again pattern. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is this: we've gotten to the fan conventions where now you can get close
Mhm.
to people. But yet, if you go to a match and try to do that, it's like the old days. They escort you out the
Mhm.
building
Mhm.
unless you're willing to pay for somebody, $100 to sign an autograph or a book cover, and then they'll put their arms around you. They're your buddy.
Mhm.
They'll pose with you, and
Mhm.
the whole 9 yards. What are your thoughts on that?
Now, this is a good tie-in, both for the Black History Month and what you
Mhm.
talked about the book, because this story is in the book.
Mhm.
And if you look back at some of the old tapings at Hamburg and Allentown, you see kids around the ring. The guys are signing
Mhm.
autographs, handing them
Yeah,
right back
Mhm.
to you, no problem. So
yeah,
one
Mhm.
particular night, Spiros Arion, July 22nd, 1978, he's wrestling Putski, and Baltimore was a Putski town.
Mhm.
So, and I swear to God in heaven, I watched this. This was no blade job. Arion had him in a headlock, and he took out this object and he stabs Putski in the head, and the blood's pouring. Putski goes over the top rope. He's counted out. A riot started. An
Oh
old
wow.
man picked up a chair to start, and security did a good job. They
yeah.
were
Mhm.
intercepting this one, intercepting that. But then one guy got in and he hit Arion from behind, and Arion turned around and started cussing. He went at the guy. The guy hits the floor, and Arion starts stomping him. Blood coming out of his mouth, his nose, his ears. That's like, you dumb bastard, he got you. But then the riot almost occurred. Well,
Yeah.
Mobile Brazil came out with Tony Garea. They were going to be the next match against the Lumberjack. And right away, Bobo was like parting of the Red Sea. People calmed down. They were happy because he was a fan favorite. And
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
peace. But it was a near full blown riot, and it was ugly.
Mhm.
But see,
Well.
that was part of, you could get close to the people,
Yeah.
to the guys you
Mhm.
like. You could shake hands and talk. But when
Yeah.
idiots
Mhm.
started to act up, like I make many references in the book, people got
Mhm.
hit hard because they were stupid.
Yeah.
Go up against,
Mhm.
you're a mere
Well,
mortal.
and that That's further proof that what you and I know to be true, that it was far more shoot than people realize, Nikki.
Right.
Far more shoot.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
The book is called When It Was Real for a reason. Not only was it real to us, but as our friend Davey O'Hannon says, and Davey said it many times on the show, the fans believed it was real because we believed it was real.
Yes.
And Spiros Arion, he's a guy who lived the gimmick. He was a heel, but he was a heel in real life too.
Well, I'm on my Facebook page, and Amelia, please hit me up, Facebook friend, because every day I post something.
Absolutely.
It's got nothing to do with the book because I don't have any pictures in there except there's a little gallery and mostly clips of the advertisements. But what I remember on a daily basis, the glory years, 1970 to 83, pre-Hulk Hogan, and we were talking about Arion against Bruno, the anniversary at Madison Square Garden after the big turn on Chief and Bruno. And Evan Ginsberg, good friend, his father was a cab driver. The cabbies, the Italian and the Greeks, they all parked, they would file into Madison Square Garden. February 17th, 1975, they wanted to see this match. We were afraid Arion could beat Bruno. Like somebody else brought up, we knew Bruno was going to murder Zbyszko. That everybody piled in to see the annihilation. But with Arion, it was like, shit, he could beat Bruno. This is like, we don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no scripted anything. Back then, it was nice.
It really was remarkable when you think that. First of all, New York cabbies. It's important that Nikki said New York cabbies.
Yeah,
because they are a grizzled bunch of guys. Okay, they're hard nosed, they're hard ass, they're just a hard group of guys. Okay, if you can convince a cabbie that what they're seeing is real, you've done a job. Trust me, you've done your job well.
Right?
Hey, they're cops without guns back then because they were getting held up. I mean, that was one of the worst professions, in my opinion, because
oh my God,
you got somebody behind you, and if he's going to do you, the gun to your head, you're done. There's nothing you can do.
Oh, definitely.
It was a tough way to go.
It really was. I'll tell you what, I miss. You and I have talked about, what we miss in wrestling. I want to talk to you about something because there are two. I was going over this today, I was trying to figure out when the second golden age of wrestling might have been, and I think I figured it out. I think it's clearly beyond dispute that the first golden age of wrestling was 1948 to 1960-ish. All right, 61, 62. That ushered in the Bruno era, 63, around there. 63. Okay. The second golden age, I had to think about this, and it probably would, in my estimation, Nick, and maybe if you agree with me or not, I'd like to hear your opinion. I think the second golden age of pro wrestling in my lifetime would probably be 1970 to around 1981, 82, just prior to the ushering in of the Hulk Hogan era. Would I be wrong in assuming that, Nikki?
I'm not just saying this to kiss up to you. I agree. Let's clarify, though, 83, after Backlund dropped the belt to the Sheik and then Sheik gave it to... But 1970, because of the great Nikolai Volkov as one of the Mongols, and this has been brought up so many times by so many people, Bruno and Ivan Koloff were only drawing half a house prior to Mongols' arrival. When that team came, and I was a kid in my teens at the time, and we looked, it's like, how in the hell is Chief and Bruno going to beat that guy? Guido Mongol was good, normal size, but Nikolai, who we only knew was Beppo Mongol and was only 19 years old at the time, he was about 6'3" and 345 of muscle, and it's like,
legit 345.
So they come with the pigtail from Mongolia. They got the animal furs, which were real. They were legitimate. And
Yeah.
that was it. The doors blew off the hinges, man. People
Yeah.
were packing the arenas, and it never stopped. At like Arion and Bruno, I say 75 solidified the Worldwide Wrestling Federation as the number one. That was it, the best promotion anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And they just kept on going from that point on, and it got better. Superstar, he certainly, it was great.
Well, you got to remember, Nikki, at that time, nobody ever saw anything
No.
like the Mongols.
No,
That was,
absolutely.
they were like, they scared people. Okay, I
They
mean,
did.
they scared people like the first time I ever saw Abdullah the Butcher. He scared the shit out of me.
Yes, I remember.
And I know Abby now, and he's a sweet guy. But not when I was 12 years old. He wasn't a sweet guy.
No.
Well, I had George the Animal Steel chase us, not me, but us, because he would look in your direction, and we climb over top of each other to get out of the way, because he was crazy, and he did a great job.
Yes.
He would just stay in character. For him, most of the show wasn't the match, because you know what the hell was going to happen, but we loved it. It was afterwards he would really perform.
Yeah.
The one guy, and I think it's beyond dispute. I don't care what generation you're talking about. The one guy, even now, I think who will go down in history as probably the most bizarre, the scariest, the most unpredictable guy you'll ever see wrestle was the original Sheik Eddie Farhat.
Oh, no argument there. I mean, he delivered.
Now Amelia, she's too young to know who Eddie Farhat was. Tell Amelia a little bit about Sheik, the original Sheik.
Well, see, Amelia, the problem is Khosrow Hussein Viziri, who we knew as the Iron Sheik. First, he was the Great Hussein in 1979. When he took this persona, the Iron Sheik, it causes a lot of confusion because the Sheik was Eddie Farhat, and he would be able to do this thing where he could throw fire, and I mean, this was great. But he would carve you up with a pencil. Okay,
great. Yes, he would too.
And I mean, you got carved up. Chief would go to Detroit, and I think the all-time record, Bobo Brazil, and here we go, Black History Month. This is a perfect segue. I think Bobo Brazil and the original Sheik hold the record for two people that have wrestled the most everywhere and anywhere. They've got to be the record holders for that category.
We have a little trivia about Bobo Brazil. Bobo Brazil was the first black millionaire wrestler.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's fact.
I know that.
Found that out today. Yeah, we did that. We're gonna do something, Nikki, that we actually did this last night with Nicola Roberts, Baby Doll. I'm gonna do this tonight with Nikita Breznikov, because you're the guy of all the people, you're the guy who would really appreciate this. Now take a look at this. Take a look at this. We're taking a look at a slideshow I put together. Some of the greatest black wrestlers of all time. Right. Arguably, the first two guys, Booker T and this fella named The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
Would probably be, in my opinion, two guys who really changed the face of wrestling, because Booker T with his brother Stevie Ray, Harlem Heat, created a buzz, not simply because of their wrestling, but there were two black guys who came out with a white woman as their manager. That was, back in the day, that was a big deal. Big deal back then.
But what I would argue, it would be that the predecessors that had to go through the racism that did exist at that time, they traveled and they tried to get hotels, go to restaurants. They had to endure hell on earth, but they stuck it out because they loved what they did. And thank God that they did. They laid the groundwork for the generations that would come after them. But we loved them. And we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. But Now, when we talk about when it was real, I have back here, it's Bobo Brazil opened the Baltimore Civic Center April 6, 1963 with Buddy Rogers. Now, for you to get that billing, it's like, wow, you got to be a top draw. I'm going to open my building. Oh, my man, Tony Atlas, one of my all-time favorite people.
Yeah.
And he still looks like that. I don't know how old he is. I'm not going to say it, but he still looks like that.
He is 75 years old.
Wow.
Incredible.
He sure is. And he still looks like the man he's 75 and he's got 26-inch biceps. Okay. That's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. But
now, The Rock, his grandfather, the great High Chief Peter Maivia, I love that man. Without a doubt. He was great.
Probably the most unpredictable African-American wrestler was Abdullah the Butcher. Let's talk. Hey, you want to talk about Black history, Nikki? Here's Black history. What do you remember about Bearcat Wright?
I've heard stories about Bearcat Wright, Sailor Art Thomas, Earl Maynard. These were people, they were like supermen. Well, Mark Henry, I was at Cauliflower Alley when he got his a Lifetime Achievement Award. Right. And you call him Viscera. We knew him as Mabel. Okay.
Right.
Butch Reed, the Natural. There's another one.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a name I bet you is going to shock you.
Yeah. A small bit about Butch Reed. We talked about him last night. We booked him for the podcast and he died a week later.
Oh, no.
So we never got. I spoke to him. I was telling Nicola Roberts last night. I spoke to Butch on the phone. We were going to get him booked and everything, and then he passed away. Yeah.
Hey,
that was a
Junkyard Dog up there.
What's that, Nikki?
You got Junkyard Dog?
Oh, Junkyard Dog. Yes. Hold on. Let me go back here. Hold on.
There was Bobo Houston Harris. Yes.
There's Viscera. Yeah. I believe the dog. Well, actually, I got a funny story about the dog. My late father, I lost my father, Nikki. He passed away on January 21st.
God rest his soul.
Thank you. And there's Bobo. My father's drinking buddy was Junkyard Dog.
Really? That's great.
Yeah. They were great friends. And it's funny. My father would drink out of a small beer mug, and then the dog would have the whole pitcher in front of him.
The Big Cat, one of my favorite heels.
Now let's talk about him for a minute. Let's go back. Just for half a second. Let's go back to Ernie the Cat Lad. There he is.
Number 99.
Yeah. Let's talk. Here's a guy who came from football, and a lot of guys back in the day, we know this through Wahoo McDaniel, that he actually wrestled in the off season of football. In fact, he enjoyed it so much, not only because of the work, but because of the money. He made more money as Ernie the Cat Lad. They made more money wrestling in the off season than they did playing football for the full season. Yes. That's crazy when you think about a wrestler making more money than a football player.
Now, to legitimize Ernie Ladd, anybody that watches pro football, when the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Minnesota Vikings in 1968 Super Bowl, the NFL films the very last shot where the players hold Hank Stram, the head coach, up on their shoulders prominently. You see the Big Cat right there with him. And it's like, wow, that's great. There's our Ernie Ladd. That's perfect. That gives a legitimacy to wrestling, to foot. That's like, there he is, Ernie Ladd.
D'Lo Brown.
Sailor
Art Thomas.
Chief loved Sailor Art Thomas. Strongbow loved him. He got along great with him.
Here's the guy you don't hear about. He's still around, by the way. He is 86 years old. Sweet Daddy Siki. And I think you'll appreciate this, Nikki. Sweet Daddy Siki is a professional karaoke singer these days.
Really?
You can't make this shit up.
No.
You can't.
But you got to make money to pay the bills, so I'm glad to hear it.
There's the dog.
And he played for
There he
Green Bay
is.
Packers, Sylvester Ritter.
There he is. Junkyard Dog.
I want to talk about the dog for a couple minutes because he's another guy, Nikki, that was a trailblazer in a lot of ways. He broke ground in wrestling at a time when black guys weren't drawing crowds and headlining bills.
Right.
The dog working for Bill Watts at the time was headlining the Superdome.
Yes.
People don't understand that, Nikki.
I have a wonderful story for you about that too. And it segues into a couple of things. Nikolai was going to work with Junkyard Dog down in Louisiana for Bill Watts. Now, this was before the Russia national anthem gimmick started in WWE, WWF.
Right.
So they were bringing the tape and they would play it. So Jake the Snake's father, Grizzly Smith, was the booker. He said, "Oh shit, I forgot the tape." So Bill Watts said, "I'm going to give you a big fine. How the hell you killing the gimmick tonight? Nikolai's going out there with Junkyard Dog." So Nikolai said, No, don't give him no fine. I can sing it." He said, "No shit." Yeah. Let me do it. So they go out. So the announcer says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have bad news. The tape from Nikolai Volkov's Soviet national anthem is lost." And yeah, everybody's happy. He said, "However, Nikolai Volkov is going to sing it." And Nikolai said it first got quiet. Then he started singing. He said, "First time in my life I was scared. I thought they were going to tear the building down. They're stomping, they're booing, they're throwing. Like, stop that shit. Don't. And then, of course, they brought Junkyard Dog out to save the day. But Nikolai said, that's where me singing actually began.
Oh, man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Here he is. Sylvester Ritter.
He
the
was lucky
Junkyard Dog.
for the cartoons, and God bless him. You make the money however you can make it. Good, right place at the right time.
Yeah.
King too, or they called Ernie Ladd the King and Daddy Ladd. I always love that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the importance of putting a title on. Here we go. On Ron Simmons. It's interesting that, and people don't understand this. Ron Simmons was legitimately the first recognized black world champion in wrestling history. And a lot of people don't understand that. They say, well, what about Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas? Well, they were recognized, true, absolutely, but they were a tag team. And a very short-lived tag team. But Ron Simmons was legitimately a world champion. Interestingly enough, he became world champion and didn't know he was going to be champion.
But that's a little bit disputable unless you look at Bobo's United States Heavyweight Championship, which he carried forever in the 70s, the 60s.
Oh, yeah, 70s. Absolutely. Absolutely. But we're not talking about the U.S. championship. We're actually talking about the first recognized world champion.
Okay.
The first recognized black world champion, I should say. Even Theodore Long, who was Ron's manager, said, and I think I'm going to quote him. He said, "For me, it wasn't black history; it was history."
Good man. Okay.
Yeah.
Because when we walked through the portals of those doors, nothing mattered. Nobody's race, nobody's politics. We were there.
Yeah.
We were there loving wrestling. Art Thomas was a tremendous.
Sailor Art Thomas was a big guy. There's Sweet Daddy Siki with his United States title, and wearing a very funky and colorful jacket. He's still there. He is, Butch Reed, the late Hacksaw Butch Reed. What a nice guy, really sweet guy that I spoke to on the phone. So we are back. Nikki, let's discuss this a little bit. How important in the overall history of professional wrestling is the African American athlete? What strides can we point to made by the black athlete in wrestling?
Well, they were essential because when you talk about, and a lot of people look down at us as fans as being probably not too smart upstairs because they would say, you believe that? Yeah, why not? It was believable. If you made it stupid, like today it is, sorry guys, and God
Yeah.
bless everybody that crawls between the rows, but today it looks stupid. Back then, it
Yeah.
didn't look stupid, and it was just as dangerous, maybe a little bit more. But you needed some representative of everybody. Okay, that's why you had Pedro Morales, the Hispanic population happy. You needed the black athlete in there, okay, because that brought legitimacy. Now I'm going to go reach way back. There was a guy named Woody Strode, who you may know as an actor,
Yeah.
okay, and
I know
especially
exactly who you're talking about.
the man who shot Liberty Valance. He played. He was Pompey. He was John Wayne's character, whose name he was his sidekick. He was in that. He had an extensive career in Hollywood. He was in Batman. He played in Marsha Queen of Diamonds episode. But Woody Strode, I loved him as an actor, and I could tell the guy was in good shape. But it was like, wow, he was a wrestler, and this goes way back, probably 50s when he was wrestling. California, he did a lot of his stuff out there on the West Coast. It's like,
There were a couple of people that I kept out of that slideshow purposely to talk about. Of course, Tony Atlas was there, but Rocky Johnson was not there. Nor was SD Jones. And these are two guys that I think deserve a place in history of their own. Certainly SD Jones does, in my opinion, because here is a guy who won very, very few, and I mean minimal matches in his career, but made his career was making other guys look strong, look good, putting them over. The unsung hero of wrestling is the colloquial jobber, now the enhancement guy. Talk to me, Nikki, about the importance and maybe a story or two about this guy that you and I grew up watching called Special Delivery Jones.
He was us because poor SD was always he was climbing that ladder. He was clawing. And like you say, he didn't always win. He hardly won. And he would get that close. And then, boom, he'd miss into the turnbuckle. Down he gets pinned. And it's like, so we were always behind him. But I'll tell you a couple of good stories, truly. Tony Atlas, who we mentioned, I heard Tony Atlas say, and he told me, and he said this on camera, he said, SD Jones is stronger than me. He's the strongest man I've ever seen. This guy is incredible. Now, Chief Jay Strongbow, when he was an agent, went to Vince and said, I think you ought to make Tony Atlas and SD Jones tag team champions. There's your first black tag team champions. But I think Rocky was a little bit friendlier with Pat Patterson. Pat had the bigger voice and Pat won out. But I think SD Jones would have been better because Rocky Johnson was strong as an individual. He didn't need a tag team belt. He could have carried just about anything else.
I never understood that, Nikki. You just illustrated perfectly why, and I never understood why Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson ever came together.
And they were not friends, according to Tony.
It's like, oil and water, man. It's like these two guys just didn't on no level ever, personally, professionally, philosophically, they did not gel at all. They both were big, muscular, strong athletes, lifetime athletes. Rocky, of course, played football. He was a gym rat. Tony Atlas was he was a walking muscle, okay? And still is a walking muscle. But when you have two guys that are so similar and there's no diversity between them, to me, that's cause for trouble.
Well,
because they're both. And tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, please do.
No.
Here's what I see: you got two big muscle heads vying for the pose down spotlight. Like it's like, look at me, and whatever the case, but come on, give me
Let's
SD Jones would have been the perfect guy
let's
for
back up from
Tony.
1983 for a minute.
Yeah.
Your uncle, Phil Zacco,
Yeah.
booked SD Jones and Tony Atlas against Saito and Fuji.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a match. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
boy.
surprised they didn't bring it back. That would have been the time, at least transitional. Give it to them for a month or two. We would have been very happy as fans. That would have put a lot of things over. That would have, but for whatever reason, because like I've explained to people before, yeah, they were all under the same banner, but you were able to do your own little thing to a point in your territory. But you had to go along with whatever the main office said, and they didn't want Atlas and Joe as champions. So no, Fuji and Saito were going to run with it until Strongbows get it. And it was like, that would have been good. That was
Nikki,
the time.
here's kind of an oddball question for you, but I know that if I know anything about you, you probably have a story and you probably have an opinion. Has there ever been a racial angle or a racist/racial angle that actually worked?
Well, yeah. I mean, the old promos, the things that were said, like when Sergeant Slaughter was wrestling a series in Baltimore with Rocky Johnson, I mean, he couldn't get away with the things he said then. Today, they would burn the building down. But use your brain. It brought people in to see Sergeant Slaughter get his ass beat by Rocky Johnson.
I'm asking.
3 months.
Yeah.
And the blow off was a cage. Backlund was not available
Nikki,
for whatever reason.
The reason I'm asking you is, I don't know if I'm imagining it, but I seem to remember maybe, and I don't know if it was Baltimore or Philadelphia, but I seem to remember a referee being accused of racism by SD. You know what I'm talking about?
Dusty Feldbomber.
Thank
Dusty
you.
Feldbomber.
I thought I was cracking up, Nikki.
No, it goes to August the 18th of 1979. SD was wrestling Joe Mascara. Bullshit match, okay? Yeah. But I remember SD kept getting up. Come on, give me a faster count. And even Dick Graham, your mentor, who was doing the color, and Vince was a little bit late, but he showed up, and they were saying, Dusty Feldbomber. It seems like he's short counting SD Jones for some reason. Yeah, and, it did become a bit of an issue. SD won the match because Mascara was like, "Who the hell is he?" And that's true.
Yeah, so one of the few matches that he actually won.
That he was in, but SD won. But it was like, it did look like, okay, what's the problem here? Why we got to pull teeth to get this 3 count out of Dusty Feldbomber? What a name, Feldbomber, too.
Well, but that happened. I think it happened in Philadelphia, but
sure.
Did it happen in Philly?
Yeah, it was at the Spectrum, without a doubt.
Okay. The other, and I seem to remember a story or reading a story, hearing it, whatever the case may have been, of a similar event happening either at the Cap Center or in Baltimore. Do you know anything about like a racist referee fast counting a black competitor? I'm trying to remember. I wish the hell I remembered.
I don't, because you got to know better than to go against what the company wants. So if you're going to do something really stupid, you're going to be out the door. And it's like, why would you even bother to do that? That's going to be dumb. That's really going to be dumb. Now, some of the things like Bobo Brazil, when we were talking about Bobo, people don't realize that Pedro Morales, when he was champion, Bobo carried Baltimore for the summer of '73. Pedro, for whatever reason, just wasn't doing it. So they said, the hell with it. Bring in Bobo. Bobo's working with Freddie Blassie. He's working with George Steele. He's drawing it. The only time Superstar Billy Graham defended the belt against Bobo Brazil was in Baltimore. July 15th, 1970. And it was like, this is great. this makes the bet. And he wasn't in the territory, but they brought him in. Phil Zacco brought him in specifically for that night to wrestle Superstar. And it was like the place was packed. We were going crazy. We wanted this because Bruno failed in the rematch, and we're pissed because he got beat. He got cheated in Baltimore. So it's like, okay, bring Bobo in. He'll beat him. But then he falls short. And it was like, shit, now what, man? We can't live with this. This is a black cloud over Baltimore's head that Bruno got beat by Superstar because he cheated. So, he brought
Nikki,
in Bobo.
why did you mention Bobo? There was I'm guessing it was probably late in the 70s, maybe 78, 79. Bobo and Dominic DeNucci, our late friend Dominic DeNucci, who was on the show. By the way, Nikki, I found out that our podcast, the one that you were gracious enough to be on, was the very last podcast that Dominic ever did, was our show.
That brings some comfort to me. It really does. And it was a great show. Anybody that hasn't heard it, go back and it's archived. Because there's nobody like Dominic that can tell a good down-home story.
Oh, my God. He was
all
amazing.
Clean, but very good.
That man was funny as shit. He was so funny.
And he didn't try to be all the time, but he was very entertaining.
Why did the company, more specifically, why did Vince McMahon Sr., who by all accounts was a fairly easy guy to get along with, why did he ask Bobo and Dominic to leave? Well, we know why with Dominic. Why did he ask Bobo to leave? The Dominic and Bobo went up upstate New York and made a fortune.
Up to Buffalo, sure. And now see, with Bobo, I don't know any of the information behind the scenes here because he's drawing. But for whatever reason, it just stopped. They stopped mentioning the U.S. title. Bobo's gone. So it's like, hey, I'm Bobo Brazil. I can write my ticket. It ain't like I got to be here. This is where, like New York, you want to be there. But okay,
sure.
You don't want to use me? I'm gone. No problem.
Yeah.
Now, why? Who knows? It's probably got to do with money, as always.
Yeah, money.
The promoters, it's like trying to draw blood from a vampire.
Well, I would hope that, in fact, it would almost be comforting to think it was about money. I would hate to think that it had anything to do with him being black.
I don't think so because they saw green before they saw black.
Let's talk about that. That's an excellent segue. Let's talk about black earning green in the WWE under Vince McMahon Jr. It's a very different game these days. You'd be hard pressed to really find, and I hate to use this word, but a standout black athlete in WWE. I don't know any.
I don't know anybody at WWE. I'm lost because I don't follow any of what they do today.
Yeah, it's so different nowadays. Especially, you have to have some kind of gimmick, or you have to have some kind of persona now. And like, look at Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You have to have a 2x4, or Hulk Hogan. You have to have your vitamins and stuff like that.
Amelia,
something different.
That's a real good point. Let me ask you, being the only female on the panel, let me ask you, when you're watching wrestling these days, okay?
Yeah.
And you don't see, are you upset when you don't see African Americans being represented, or Hispanics being represented, or this diverse group of ethnicity that we all live in? How does that affect you as a fan viewing the product?
Well, I think all races should be represented, as far as, that way everybody can bring their own culture to it. As far as, black women, there should be more of us women wrestling. But as far as the women today, I think the women today have brought women a bad name, actually, because the way they're represented now, it's horrible, because they're wearing less and showing more, if you know what I mean. And wrestling's not wrestling like it is now. It's horrible now. the way they're wrestling. It's like it's giving us a bad
Yeah.
name as women. It's horrible. I won't watch it.
Nikki,
I'll
think
turn the
about
channel.
what she just, and this is a woman saying that.
I was friends with Ann Casey, God rest her soul.
Oh, rest her soul. Annie
Mhm.
was a wonderful woman.
We wore a
Mhm.
one-piece bathing suit. That's what we
Mhm.
wore into the ring. She said,
Yes.
and men, they were there for a single purpose because it was like, oh, yeah, they got a women wrestling, so it was kind of like
Mhm.
not X-rated, but it got men
Yes.
thinking. But they were great athletes.
They were wonderful athletes. Yes.
They do it, And
Mhm.
then Ann had said many times, okay, what they're doing today, they're showing more skin, but they're working their tails off and they're
Mhm.
taking bumps. And it's like, yeah, it's hard work because look, please don't anybody hit me with anything, but a woman's just not built like a man. It hurts a lot more. They don't have enough shock absorbers, the muscle tissue
Mhm.
like we do. So it's
Right.
harder for them. When they take the
Mhm.
blows, it hurts. It's
Yeah.
terrible. So,
Mhm.
Aunt Casey would say, I'm glad because when I post things, and I would always include, and in fact, it's coming up an anniversary in March in Baltimore where it was like more women on the show back in 1972 than men. And that was
Mhm.
wild. It was like,
Yes.
what's going on here? But it drove
Mhm.
and it made good
Mhm.
sense. Not just Moolah, but like Vicky Williams, who was my heartthrob back then,
Oh
and
God,
Mhm.
yeah.
Tony Rose, Donna Christianello.
Mhm.
They were just fantastic. And Joyce Grable, I love Joyce too. God, she's one of the all-time greatest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She had a lot to say at a Cauliflower Alley presentation about women because they did recognize. Let me think who the female was that won the award that year. I'll have to think about it. But she had a lot to say about
Right.
we've come a long way. Keep the respect for us being women.
Mhm.
Portray that. Don't let them, make you look like something that you're not. You're an athlete.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're
Mhm.
beautiful, whatever. That's fine. They do the same thing with the men, right? I mean, look at Tony Garea, for Pete's sake. I mean,
Mhm.
Tony's a great athlete and a great wrestler, but matinee idol without a doubt. Nobody can deny
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Tony was in there to draw the women. Let's go.
Amelia segued in an amazing subject matter. Women. There was, lest we forget, there was one woman. She called herself Sweet Georgia Peach back in 1951.
Mhm.
Sweet Georgia Peach was, her name was, oh God, I'll tell you here in just a second. I'm going to tell you right now. Sweet Georgia.
Mhm.
Sorry, folks, I got to cheat for a second. Sweet Georgia Peach. Um,
Mhm.
oh Lord, because I have her photo. I'm going to show in just a second.
Mhm.
That she was the first black female wrestler
Mhm.
in history, and here we go. Here we go. Her name was Georgia Brown McCoy, and she called
Mhm.
herself Sweet Georgia Peach. She was the first African American female wrestler ever.
Mhm.
And was self-taught. She never, and Nikki, you know that there were no such thing as wrestling schools back in the day.
Oh,
You
Oh
learned
no.
on the job, but
Mhm.
she learned how to wrestle. Check this one out, Amelia. You'll appreciate this.
Mhm.
The woman learned how to wrestle by going to the matches and watching the guys work.
Yes.
That's
Sometimes
how
that's
she
how you
learned
learn.
to wrestle.
That's how you
You
learn
can't make
sometimes.
this
Yes.
stuff up. This is true.
Yeah. Mhm.
And she was actually featured on the Fabulous Moolah
Mhm.
documentary, Dark Side of the Ring, Nikki. She was
Mhm.
actually featured in
Yeah.
that program. You
Mhm.
remember, Amelia?
Yes. I've watched pretty much every. Yeah, I've watched every
You
episode on
watched them
that.
all. That's why I know that
Yes.
you know it.
I can't miss
It
them, especially a couple of them.
yeah, but it's
Mhm.
interesting though to think,
Mhm.
how far we've come.
Yes.
But in as much, Nikki, as we've come so very far,
Mm-hmm.
How much further do we have to go? And is there any ground left for black athletes in wrestling to achieve? What's left?
Well, I'm sure there's more to be accomplished without a doubt. And again, I'm handicapped at this because I do not follow what's being done with anybody.
Yeah.
I don't follow it anymore either. It's just not, just to me, it's just too commercial now. It's too rehearsed. It's just too
Nikki, does that
athletic.
surprise you, Nikki, when you hear people say
No.
that they don't watch anymore?
I
No,
don't anymore.
your wonderful introduction talking about my book being when it was real because we believed it. So
Yeah.
today it's like going to the movies. You know, people see
Mm-hmm.
it. "Yeah, okay, what are we going to eat? You know, what are we going to do now? Where we would talk about what happened for weeks until the next show or 1 hour
Mm-hmm.
television show. That
Oh
was
yeah.
like glued.
Yeah.
You didn't move from the television.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know, right?
4 matches and a couple of
Mm-hmm.
interviews, and that's all you got. But
Mm-hmm.
you loved it.
I
Yep.
remember watching, and Nikki, you'll appreciate this being an East Coast guy. I remember watching two sports, pseudo sports, that had me
Mm-hmm.
riveted: professional wrestling and roller derby, which was wrestling on wheels.
Right?
Roller derby was that.
Roller derby,
I never
wrestling
understood
on
it, but I
wheels,
watched it. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
pro wrestling on skates.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep.
was
That
great.
that's how I was too. I was like, I
Yeah,
watched the old wrestling matches on YouTube, like back in the day when I was watching them, and I watched the older ones when Fritz was wrestling. Those, I was like, oh my
true.
gosh, that was wrestling back then. Wow, that's how it all
Yeah,
started. And then, like, I read a good book like yours. I was reading some of the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could just imagine that happening. And when I read a good book like that, I said, I'm gonna go get that book. Like, I'm gonna go get your book because I could just read it. I can imagine myself being there watching that happening. I was like, oh my god, that is so funny. I can just imagine him doing that at Lou Albano, and then that lady doing the ritual with the salt. I was like, oh my god, I could just see her doing that. And when I read something like that, I'm like, that is a great book. If I can
And
see myself doing that, I could. Yeah, it's
Mrs.
wonderful.
Krieger was not a plant like a lot of people
Uh-uh.
think.
No, she was
They
just
had
right. She was right there always.
you can verify the promoters didn't want to pay the
Yes.
boys all the money. They ain't going to pay
oh yeah,
somebody else.
No,
he
They
ain't
no.
lying. He ain't
There's
lying.
always right.
Shit,
There's
you
always
got your full payday. They ain't going to pay a woman to go up there and aggravate you. No, that
Well, I'll
ain't
no.
tell you what,
There was
Amelia, why don't
always
you?
one person in a ring, like in every arena like that. Always like somebody like that.
I'll tell you
Always.
what, Amelia, we have a few minutes. Why don't you and Nikki talk about his book a little bit? This
Okay.
amazing book, When It Was Real.
Oh, I
Ask
know.
him
It's a
some
fantastic
questions.
book.
You read a bit today. I know you did
Hmm.
because you
Yeah.
told me and you related. She's funny. This woman. She's reading your book and she's inboxing me, going, "Did you know?" I went, "Yeah, I did know." Read the book. You'll find out more. So go
Well,
ahead. Talk to Nikki about his book.
it's like whenever there was a part of George the Animal Steel when he would always eat this green stuff. It was his candy or was it mints before he went into the ring. That was his persona. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, every night. Oh, I was like, I cannot believe do that every night. I was like,
it
And
happened by
then,
accident. And then when Vince
yeah.
started to pick up on it and put it over, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, so he's nuts. He's got the green tongue. That's perfect because
Mhm.
he's
Yeah.
doing it all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the anniversary of his death actually was February 16th. I don't know if you
Yeah.
knew that. It was so
Yes.
sad when I saw that, and I was like, "Oh no!" It's like it just happened to be, and then your book right now, it's like it just meant to be that we have him on the show. It's like it's all meant to be.
Yeah.
And then I was reading all that, and I was like, "That is so neat to have that." And then Andre the Giant was mentioned in the book, and I don't know if you knew that, but every time that he would go to the hotel room, they would have those gray buckets that they usually put the dirty dishes in at the hotel room for like when they do the banquets. They would fill
Yeah.
that up with ice as much as they could, and those 16-ounce beers, the foreign beers, they would fill a bucket just for him. I don't know,
Yeah.
about 20 or certain beers, and that would just be his bucket alone. And he would finish that just himself, and he would not get drunk at all.
Yeah. What they
I don't know
would
if you
do,
know.
Amelia, was
Yeah, that would just be his
what
own
she's
alone.
relating, Nikki, is that Andre,
Uh-huh.
when
Mhm.
he went into certain hotels, they would have a
Mhm.
hotel bus pan
Yes, just for
filled
him
with
alone.
ice and beer for him.
Just for him alone.
Yeah.
like here in Tampa when he would go to the
Yeah.
Sun Dome. And
Well, you know, Andre the Giant holds the world record. I don't know if you know this, Amelia.
yeah,
It's a legit world record.
yeah,
157 beers in one sitting.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
actually in the Guinness Book of
yeah,
Records. You can't make this
yeah.
shit
He
up.
would not. Yeah, he would not get drunk at all. It was
Crazy.
so funny. And he would just sit there and just drink one after another, and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
he would just
Well,
be
I'll
so
tell
funny.
you what, Nikki. It's great to have you back again. I got to have you back on
Yes,
again.
please.
We have to talk about when it was real and how can we, how can we garner some wrestling out of the crap? I have to call it crap because that's what it is.
Yes.
How do we garner some wrestling out of the crap that we're being spoon fed? It's just I can't watch it anymore, folks. I'm
can't.
sorry. I can't do it.
And I see a book 2 in the making, right?
I'm fortunate enough that I have an elaborate tape collection and discs, so I just go back and watch from whatever date.
Yeah.
Okay, like yesterday, I was watching Superstar Billy Graham and his brother Crazy Luke. They were the Golden Graham.
Oh my God!
A couple of days right after they dropped the belt to Backlund, so they were thinking, well, maybe we'll put them. They had a little run. They didn't get the belts, but it was good. It was a nice thing.
Nikki, do you remember when all the Grahams were together? Eddie,
Crazy
Luke, and Dr. Jerry?
Yes. Oh, yes.
And then they introduced their younger brother, Billy Graham. Superstar Billy Graham was built like a brick shit house.
And I say it in the book. My favorite era, or my favorite time of the 70s was when he was champion. And I think there was better heat to have Bruno chase the guy that stole the belt than have the belt. Well, look, they hold the attendance record at the Spectrum for 3 matches in a row. That it was a snowy night. It was February 18th, 1970. The cage match with Bruno just 2 days before Superstar lost the belt. And they turned about 10,000 away, they estimate. And of course, everybody's dying. It's like, look at the money we're losing, but the building's full. Even the nosebleed seats were filled. It's like,
the Spectrum held 23,500 people.
Yeah, the fire hazard.
Big. It was a large oval building. With the Madison Square Garden, if you've not been, the garden is almost completely circular. It's a round building. In contrast to the Spectrum, which was a long building because everything was surrounded. Everything was built around, I should say, around the hockey rink because it was built as a hockey venue, which, of course, they housed basketball, hockey, arena football, concerts, of course, out the yin yang, and, of course, professional wrestling. But it was a great building to watch wrestling in, particularly if you sat on the sides rather than the opposing ends, which seemed like 5 miles away because it was a long building.
Right.
Nikki, you know the Spectrum, so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Right next to the vet.
Right.
Yeah.
Old Veterans Stadium,
And they're both gone now. Now you've got the Wachovia, I'm sorry, you've got the Wells Fargo Center and you've got the Lincoln Field. Yeah, I miss those days. I really do. Well, I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
The one guy that you have to have on your show, his name is Nikita Breznikov, and he is a treasure trove of stories. He's my friend. He is always there when I called Nikki. He never said no.
I try to be. Yes.
Well, I see a book 2 in the making, right?
What's that, Amelia? I'm sorry.
I'm asking him. I see a book 2 in the making, right?
Oh,
what about that, Nick?
Yes.
I had people ask me about 1980.
Book 2.
1983, and I said, "Oh God, this took me 2 years." I'm thinking about it.
I'm putting pressure on him, huh?
If I find,
because you're going to make him work, right?
Just go 1980
because he's going to be back on the show.
Book in itself, right there.
Telling you. Well, I'll tell you what.
Yes,
we've
come back always.
We have an action-packed hour. I'll tell you, and there's no shortage of stories when you have Nikita Breznikov.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki, tell everybody where they can reach you, your social, where they can get the book, this terrific book, When It Was
I'm
Real.
still the old timer. The book you get from Crowbar Press, CROWBAR, crowbarpress.com, Scott Teal site, or the Kindle version is on Amazon. The only thing you miss from the Kindle version, which to us old timers is great, are these ads that appear all over the place, the little newspaper ads that are all over. If you don't care about that, then you can get the Kindle version immediately. I think it's $10. This is like 20. You can't go to McDonald's for that anymore. So it's it's a great read. There's some good people that say, I keep this by my bed, because you can't get it all. It's not a day-by-day record book, but it's a narrative each year, day by day. So there's a lot to read, and you can cover what you want there. And if you say, hey, look, let me see it in 1973, it's broken down for you that way. It's easy to find.
Yes.
Year by year, it's an amazing book.
Yeah.
It takes you through the entire decade of the golden age of wrestling, the 1970 through 80 period. That was wrestling gold at its absolute crazy best. No doubt about it. Amelia, where can people reach you if they want to hit you up on the show?
aachap70@gmail.com.
All right. And of course, on Facebook, you can reach her at Amelia Chapman, right?
Amelia Valerio Chapman
on Facebook. Okay. And I can be reached at WrestlingWithTheFuture@gmail.com, on Instagram at WrestlingWithTheFuture, on Twitter at Mad Dog DeCipio. That's me. I'm the Mad Dog. They know I'm the Mad Dog. I look like a little gremlin. And you can reach me on Facebook at Angelo DeCipio. I'm all over the place. Nikki, I gotta have you back, brother. I will check with you. I know you work crazy schedule, but and God bless your wife for putting up with me. And thank you so much for being with us. If you guys want to promote anything, you've got a show to promote. You want to talk about an upcoming event, a fundraiser. You're looking to generate a little bit of buzz. You can be a guest on the show by hitting me up at WrestlingWithTheFuture@gmail.com. And it's at WrestlingWithTheFuture on Instagram. Hit me up there. As I said, WrestlingWithTheFuture@gmail.com is also on my Facebook. So there's no shortage of places to find it. But on that note, for Nikita Breznikov, for Amelia Valerio Chapman, I said it right. Wow, I actually said it right. I'm so happy. I still call you living La Vida Loca. Anyway, I'm Mad Dog DeCipio. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.